Hi there, Marika from Milano, Australia. Now, I'm in a different outfit today, not in my work gear. I'm doing some behind the scenes things for the business. Also too, it's a good time for me to get some videos out on other things that are going on and not just so much about product and microbes and all those things that have been going on. So sit back and relax and get yourself a drink of your favourite beverage, because this will be a bit more of a lengthy video. You can also catch all my videos on YouTube. Now, it's a bit probably more unusual for people to see me do a video like this on Milano, Australia, but we're all about the whole person's well-being, not just skincare or, having nice smells in your house or, buying essential oils. We cover the whole array of the whole person, because when you're dealing with people, even with skincare, you have to deal with other things like diet, nutrition, lifestyle factors. There's just a whole lot of things to deal with. Also, I do have a life coach business as well, so I integrate the two, because a lot of my consultations that I do with people end up being about lots of different things, not just skincare. Okay, so sometimes people don't see the connection between all of the areas in our life, such as environmental pollutants, food, stress, and how that has an impact on our skin. So today I'm going to do something completely different. Two things. I'm not going to talk about COVID-19, and I'm not going to talk about social isolation and distancing, okay? However, what I will talk about are the psychological effects that people are experiencing from the current situation. So let's not talk about COVID, because I think you all have so much from mainstream media about COVID-19. So moving on, if you look at my board here, what we will talk about, as I said, are the effects. So I want to talk a little bit about human needs psychology. So it's really important to understand the basics of human needs. And there is an element of psychology that covers human needs. And originally, you probably remember the pyramid that Maslow had come up with. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I'm going to go a little bit further than that. I did some training with Anthony Robbins many years ago when I first did my life coach training. When would I do that? 2005. So when I did training and did my life coaching certificate, I did it through a company in America. And at that stage, when I did life coaching, it wasn't even heard of in Australia. So it was kind of like one of those really unusual and out there kinds of things. It was mostly counselling and psychologists that people had heard about. So life coaching for me, I enjoy it because it's very strategy driven, and it's just how I do life. Everything I do in life has a strategy, a plan. I sit down and plan, and I'm going to help you do that, because I think this is the prime time that you can take the time out, sit back and go, okay, where am I at in my life and where would I like to be? Now, if we listen to the media and they're talking about 3 to 6 months, nobody really knows the date. What you could do is maybe plan the next 3 months of, if you are in isolation, what can you do to get through that? Okay, so I'm going to talk about human needs psychology, the basic model that I use with clients. I'm also going to talk about micro habits, so small habits that affect change. Now, what people don't realise, because it happens subconsciously, is that there is a whole myriad of small patterns that we do every single day. It's our rituals for life that contribute to an accumulative effect, and that's what brings about the result. The other thing is planning to change. So how do you plan to change? So if you want to change something in your life, how do you do it? Now, I remember when I first did my life coaching training, we pretty much got a bang over the hand whenever we use the word change. And they used to say, no, it's transformation. Well, if you look in the dictionary, transformation means something has changed from one thing to another. So it's transformed into something else. Human beings have the capability to transform their old ways of thinking into something new. You have the ability to transform an area in your life that's not working for you into something else. So it's change. You're creating change in your life. But some people can't handle it, change, because they are scared, and that comes back to the human needs psychology. So I'm going to talk about that as well. Also, make a goal. So I'm going to give you a challenge for the next 3 months. Create a new goal, learn something new, get out of your comfort zone. Start on a goal that you've always put off on the back burner. Now, for me, because I run a business and do life coaching, and I'm writing a book that's called Expanding Minds, that will be out soon. It's called Life is Like a Jigsaw, but you just never realised how big the jigsaw was. So I'm just editing that book at the moment, and that's been on the back burner because I've been doing so many other things. The thing is, when you're a busy person, you have to learn to plan and structure yourself so that you can meet competing deadlines. Fortunately for me, my book is flexible and my study is flexible. So I can do those things when I can do them, so I can, cut out or carve out some time in my weeks to get those jobs done. So the thing is that you too can do anything you want to do. The only limits to what you can do is your thinking about those things, okay? So what I'm going to teach you is to think differently about how you think about what you're doing or what you're not doing, okay? So procrastination can be a problem for some people. Okay, make a goal next 3 months. So this is going to be a challenge. Questions. Question to ask yourself: how do I cope in stress and crisis? So for me, with this stress going on around me, the one thing I've had to come back to is the basics of my breathing and my meditation and relaxation. Because at the end of the day, I still suffer, with life the same other people do, in the sense that life problems happen. But the difference is having the tools to be able to work through those life problems. I'm not some miracle master that doesn't have life problems. The difference is that I've got a vast toolbox on how to cope with those problems. And I'm not saying that life doesn't get me down. Sometimes I have to really work on my mind and pick myself back up and move forward and find a new strategy or tweak a goal or think about something that isn't working and how can I, make it work. So sometimes too, you might feel like you're pushing crap up a hill where you feel like you're trying to reach a goal and you're just not ever getting there. And sometimes as humans, we do self-sabotage. So we have a psychological reversal. So when I do see clients, sometimes they come to me and say, yeah, I was going really well for 2 months, but then something happened and I just went right back. Well, we have a psychological reversal thing that happens in our brain. It's quite a process, but it can be overcome. There are some little tricks that we use to help people overcome those psychological reversals, and then you actually make leap and bounds moving forward. So that's a really good tool to have. The other thing is, how do I feel about isolation? How do I feel? Think about it. How do I think and how do I feel about this isolation and being cut off from people? Even though we've got FaceTime, Skype, all those things, it's different to being in the same room as your loved ones and people that you love to catch up with, like friends. So the other thing too is that you're semi-controlled in a way, because you can't just go to a restaurant and sit and have dinner with your friends when you're used to doing that. So there's a certain sense that you've lost some kind of freedom. So I'm going to talk about that as well. The other thing is there something new that I can try while I'm in isolation that I haven't even thought about before? Or maybe something that I felt years ago or last year, it doesn't really matter when. Is there something I've been interested in that I've never actually pursued? And sometimes people don't pursue things because they've got things going on up in their head that says, oh no, you can never do that, don't do that. Or you're too old, don't do that. Oh, I'm too old, I'll never do that. Do you know, I'm nearly 50, a couple of years off 50, and I'm still studying and I still plan to study in the future. My mother always told me the one thing that you can never go wrong in life is learning. And I am not egotistical to think that I can't learn something new, because I know I can. There's always things in life that go on that make you learn. I've got a wall full of certificates. I'm a collector. I love certificates. I love to learn. I love to learn things even that I don't have a certificate for, because there is just, so many things that you can learn in life. Why don't you read a book? There's so many great books out there. Try something new. There's a lot of people that are talking to me saying, over messages, that they're bored. Well, if you're bored, it means that you lack the imagination. And I'm not being rude, but you're not using your creative imagination to do something new. This is an opportunity to take a step back, center yourself, ground yourself, and say, hey, what's new? What's an opportunity opening up for me? Grasp it. Take it. Try something new. Okay, how am I going to receive the support I need? Well, this is a big problem for people, especially financially, because some people are feeling like they're not going to be able to survive, and they're not sure about the finance, that how they're going to get the finance they need to survive. The government has released a lot of options, and I can't tell you what's best for you, but now is a time to plan, sit back, look at your life and look at the areas of your life that aren't working. And I want to talk about some of those areas on my board here. I've got them listed because I've actually had a lot of people contact me over the time when I've done life coaching or when people have seen me do videos, and they've contacted me with problems like everything from, I'm sick of this job, I'm looking for another job, what should I do? Well, that's a whole big area in itself. What should you do? Because one, I can't tell anyone what to do. I can help you come around to finding your passion in life and your purpose in life, because a lot of people feel, from my understanding of what people tell me, there's a lot of people going to jobs just to make ends meet. They're not finding their passion and purpose in life. And that comes back to sometimes what your core beliefs are about, I am the breadwinner in the family and I must work. So sometimes people go to work because they need to meet those financial needs, not because they're actually doing a job or something that they love. So that's a whole different area in itself. I have people that contact me and say they've got financial problems. They earn good money, what you would classify as good money. Like someone said to me a few months ago, I earn about $75,000 a year. But I still have no money. And so when we sat down and talked about it, I discovered that there was lots of areas where I'm not a financial advisor. I don't do that. What I do is help people identify where they're not budgeting properly. So if they want financial advice from, say, doing shares and buying homes, I send them off to a financial advisor. What I can do is help you find those areas in your life where you may be not being as frugal, or areas that you're being a bit more wasteful than perhaps what you could be. So I know that some people get a real buzz out of shopping, but once they've got that item, they're looking for the next buzz. So that's something going on up here. So sometimes finances aren't that you haven't got enough money. Sometimes the finances are accumulation of what you're doing with your money, and it's giving you not the result that you're happy with at the end. Okay, so it's a completely different matter. So we have depression and anxiety as well. They're really big at the minute because people are depressed because of finances sometimes. People are depressed because they might not have any direction in life, or they've lost their job. There's anxiety about the future, what's going to happen. So there's a whole array of different things that people are feeling at the moment. And sometimes people feel anxiety and depression at the same time, but at different times. Some people just are completely anxious and worked up, and they feel panicky about what's going to happen. And this is completely understandable. But the important thing is to always breathe, take a step back, sit down, take a review of your life, where you're at. Because when you actually really take a good review of your life, you might find that you've got some positives to really embrace and, work with in your life. The other thing is health and well-being. Well, I have, people contact me about their health. And the biggest thing I find at the moment, a lot of people have got immune suppressant going on, like a compromised immune system or autoimmune diseases and problems. So there's another whole area in itself why people have autoimmune diseases. And I don't want to go into that on this video, but often when I talk to people, there's a whole mixture of things that have happened, accumulation of things. They can be anything from environmental, genetics. The problem with being genetics is that you could have it in your genes for your whole life, but it might never trigger. But some people have something go on and it triggers, like a really, really severe stress, and it might trigger something. So it's kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. Okay, so I have a lot of people that contact me about skin problems who also have related autoimmune diseases. I'm not saying I'm a doctor, but what I actually do with people is go through their medication, go through their lifestyle, go through what they eat, their supplementing, going through their exercise. There's just, going through their thinking patterns. There's a whole array of things there, even in itself. Weight loss, weight gain. Some people lose weight unexpectedly, could be a health problem. Some people gain weight. They do all their exercise, but they're having problems, could be hormones. There's a whole other array of things there too. So time management. Some people are complaining they don't have enough time. Overcommitted, which happens. Fears, OCD, boredom and isolation. So these are the list of things that I'm getting people contact me about. Now, I actually offered to do Skype for people on Sunday night to have like a support group so people could tune in and join in a group. But funny thing about that is that I got messages from people to say, oh, I don't really want to do that because I'm a bit, embarrassed or shy and don't want people to think I'm really struggling. So I've decided to do these videos because I think you'll get a lot out of these and you can watch them at your own leisure. Have a favourite bevy as well. Okay, so the results people have in life at any given time are generally an accumulation of micro habits that they've spent their whole life doing or a long period of time doing, which brings you to the current situation. Okay, so does that make sense? Your current results, be it like financial, and I'm not talking about with this new crisis, I'm talking about people that have what you would call, good earnings, and they feel like they've never got any money, and then week to week they don't have. So there's some things there that you can even think about that brings that about, small habits. So it could be that, you do their weekly budgeting, like so they've got all their bills met, and they actually could have, a spare $500 or $600. Some people that's actually happens. And then I ask them the question, do you save? Well, some people say, no, I spend everything I've got. And then the question then is, why is it that you feel that drive and impulse to spend everything that you've got? And then we start to get into the root causes and the core issues that are going on. So it's much deeper than just surface. Okay, so I'll talk about that in another video as well. So the results that you're getting now are an accumulation of micro habits that you have performed for a long time. So this can be both positive and negative. Okay, so you want to start a gym routine. Okay, you haven't done gym for about a year, right? This is how I work with people. So they come into my office and they say, look, I'm really feeling unhealthy. I feel sluggish. Their weight's not too bad. It's not about weight loss. It might be about feeling healthy and vital. And I ask them the question, what are you doing about your exercise? Well, I'm not doing anything. Okay. Well, that's honest. I like honesty. You've got to be completely honest with yourself first before me. Okay, so the first thing is, the first question is, why aren't you doing any exercise? Oh, well, because I don't have time. Okay, we've got 24 hours in a day. If you break that up, you go to work for 8, maybe travel half an hour each side, so it's 9 hours. Depends what time you get up in the morning. So we break it all down, and I find when I've done this activity with people, they've actually got 2 or 3 spare hours in the evening. Or they get up in the morning and they sit for 2 hours and have their coffee and watch TV. Okay, that's fine, but you're not allocating the time that you need to do the exercise. Okay. I also had a lady once that come to see me and she said, I don't have time to exercise. I said, okay, what do you come to me for? Oh, well, because I want to get healthy. And I said, okay, why don't you have time to exercise? And she said, well, I get up in the morning. She told me about a day. She goes to work, she goes home, and she does a house clean every single day. And then she does dinner, and then she goes and, sits down and watches TV for 2 or 3 hours. And I said to her, well, asked her the question, do you value how you feel and your health and well-being as much as you value the shows you watch on TV? Oh, well, I have to watch Home and Away, and then I have to watch the show that's after that. I have to watch, Bachelorette or, numerous shows. And I'm like, well, if you have to watch those shows, are you putting those shows, what are you getting out of those shows? The pleasure that you're getting out of those shows must be outweighing the pain of feeling bad. Okay, so we have to somehow turn that around. The pleasure of feeling good must outweigh the pleasure of watching those shows. Or you get up a bit earlier in the morning and you do 20, 30-minute walk. There's a lot of options. It just depends on how you think about it. So when you get up and you walk for 30 minutes a morning or whatever your exercise regime is, the cumulative effect of that over the months is going to be positive. But the accumulative effect of doing nothing is going to be negative. See where I'm going with this? It's like money. The accumulative effect of deciding to save some of your wage every week is going to bring about positive feelings at the end of 3 months. And it takes, like people say, there's this old sort of quote, it takes 3 weeks to change a habit and 3 months to change a lifestyle. However, I think it's actually longer for both of those things. I think it takes 3 months to change a habit at least, and 9 to 10 months to change your lifestyle. That's what I've experienced with people. And what I often find is when I've run programs, last year I ran a 13 weeks to the New You program, I had 1% in the program at the end, and it was an excellent experiment because it really confirmed my hypothesis at the beginning. Okay, so small micro habits that you do every single day will end up being a positive or negative result at the end of any given time frame. So if you decide that you want to take up a new goal, you must stick at it for that period of time to get the positive result. If you give it up in 2 weeks, you're not going to get the result, so you're going to fail. And then that brings about more frustration and shame and all those other feelings that come up when you don't complete something. And the other thing I find is that people come up with heaps of excuses of why. 1, they can't start a program. 2, why they can't keep going through the program. And 3, why they give it up. And sometimes people use things like, I'm going on holidays, so I can't do the program. Or, my mum's in hospital, I can't do the program. Well, actually, yes, you can, because it's only taking half an hour of your day. Okay, so it's like that. It's a priority factor. So whenever you set goals and you want to do something, the pleasure of achieving that goal must outweigh the pain of not achieving that goal. And the pleasure of achieving that goal must outweigh the current situation. Okay, so the current situation is we are in isolation. You're only meant to go out for short periods for necessities. Okay, so this brings about a whole array of other problems for people because it's making people address how they feel about being on their own. Some people are actually on their own. Some people cope well with being on their own. Some people don't. So when I want to bring you to the attention of the human needs psychology model that I learned with Tony Robbins, but I've changed the words slightly just because I want to make it a little bit more meaningful to me. Okay, so at the top of the pyramid, and you can see this here, we have 4 needs of the personality. Okay, so the first need is security. So one of the things that's occurred with this whole business that's going on at the minute is that people's sense of security has been ripped out from under them, okay? So when our sense of security is ripped out from under us, we then have an issue with our identity. Now, once we lose our identity, it takes a little while for our brains to reconfigure and reconcile. But what happens is that if you don't have the tools to be able to reconcile these problems that you're having, and these feelings that you're having and these thought processes that you're having, you might go to an unhealthy coping strategy, which could be alcohol, drugs, gambling, which you probably can't at the minute, maybe online. But there's a whole array, or even, over shopping, like, oh, I feel better when I over shop, it helps me cope. Or there could be other things, okay? There's a whole bunches of things that people do to cope in life, okay? Other things. Now, the second thing is diversity. There's another thing that people have as a need in their personality is diversity. So therefore, although we need security, we need to know that we go to our job every day and we're going to get our pay at the end of the week or fortnight or month, however it is that you get paid. That's our secure job because that meets the basics of paying our bills, buying what we want, going to entertainment, buying our clothes, all those sorts of things, buying gifts for people we love. But the other thing that we need in life is diversity. We need, as humans, to go, okay, what's going to give me some interest? What's going to give me an adventure? Some people jump out of a plane, skydive. Some people bungee jump. Some people do skiing. They have those sense of adrenaline where they feel a buzz. So that gives them diversity in life. It's, an escape from the everyday norm. The third thing that people have a need for is love and connection. So we need, love with people, animals, nature, and connection. We need to connect, whether it be on social media, phone, FaceTime, Skype, whatever it is, and with animals. You know, people connect very strongly with animals. I love animals. Now, animals are brilliant for that because animals are very unconditional. So it doesn't matter what's going on. You know that your dog or your cat or rabbit or whatever pet you have is going to love you at the end of the day. Except cats, they can be a bit aloof sometimes. They love you in their own way. You just don't know how to read them sometimes. Where if you're the kind of person that needs love and needs to feel that, a dog's probably a good option. Okay, now the next one is a sense of importance. So we're down here at number 4, importance. Now we need in our lives to feel a sense of importance, like I'm important to somebody, or I'm important in my job, or some people go to the extreme and feel important or significant by, you know, going into a shop and holding a gun at somebody. That makes them feel significant, or they're in a gang and they feel important because they're part of this gang, or they're in a group of people, or, you know, they get that sense of importance by being in a sporting team like cricket. Like, I'm the best batter, or, you know, you're the best bowler, or you're the best fielder. So people get a sense of importance by doing stuff that makes them feel significant in life. You might be important in your partner's life, or you might be important to your children. So there's a whole different way, heaps of different ways that people go about and meet that need for importance. So those 4 are the needs of the personality. This is all basic psychology. But the reason I wanted to bring it to your attention is because unless you've seen psychological models and understand how it works in our everyday life, you might not have thought of these things. So these things you can sit down and have a think about. What are the 1 or 2 things in the personality that I do most? I know people that really lean towards security. So they have a real deep core need to feel secure in life. So, or their life is meaningful when they have love and connection. But most people have 1 or 2 that they sort of bounce between at the majority of the time, and then you'll use the other ones as you need them. So if you've been in a job for 30 years, you might start, even though it's secure, you might start to need to do some training, or feel in your mind that you need a bit of diversity, challenge, all that kind of thing. But you might be the kind of person that just loves security and you want to stay there for another 20 years. That's up to you. But it's good to ask yourself the question, what needs do I try to achieve, and how do I go about achieving them? Now, the next 2 are the next levels that I'd like to discuss, because these are the 2 that you can really delve into while you're in isolation or while you have time on your own. Now, these are what I call spiritual needs. So the 5th need is personal growth. We all really need to develop ourselves personally, because if we develop ourselves personally, we're better in the professional world. So when we have emotional intelligence and we understand who we are, what triggers us, what really riles us up, what makes us happy, what makes us energized and enthused, and what completely flattens us. We need to know those triggers, because if you want to thrive in life, you have to know your own triggers, your own thoughts. You have to catch those really negative thoughts that you have, those negative assumptions, those negative automatic thoughts, and those dysfunctional beliefs that you have that come up and rear their ugly head when shit hits the fan. Okay? So this is one of those times. Personal growth is probably one of the most important things as we as a humans in the human world can do. Because when we grow and understand ourselves, we have a lot more compassion and grace for other people, because we know that everyone has their own story, their own core beliefs, their own thinking, and we know and understand that people are a result of previous thinking, previous experiences, what's happened to them in childhood, what's happened to them at school, whether they've been bullied or not, or what's happened with peers. And people all have a story. It's just finding out what it is, okay? The next one, the 6th one, which is really important, is contribution to society. How can I contribute to society? And the most important part about contribution to society is no expectation of anything in return. So this is what makes us feel our sense of purpose in life. So if we're personally growing ourselves, we will understand the 4 needs of the personality. We will understand our purpose in life and give ourselves a sense of direction. Because if we don't have a sense of purpose in life and contribute to other people, if we do our personal growth, we can contribute to other people and give something to them without any expectation of anything in return. Now, giving something to people doesn't mean that you have to give them money, gifts, items. You might give them time. You might be an ear. They might need someone to listen to them. So if you sense ever that someone needs you to listen, that's your time to contribute. That's your contribution to society. Something nice for somebody, pay it forward. You might go into a shop and you might pay for someone's burger or cup of coffee. There are people doing this at the moment. And it's a really satisfying feeling when you give something to someone with no expectation of anything in return. It's very, very satisfying. Okay, so when we have these needs, what often happens is that when we just rely on meeting the needs of the personality, when this kind of event happens and you're trying to meet a need of the personality, be it security, diversity, you find that you might struggle. If you start to then go down to the 5th and 6th need, the personal growth and the contribution, you then take yourself into a new realm of thinking, because you start to stop focusing on the selfish needs of our personality, because our needs in our personality are very temporary. Okay, so we go, okay, I like diversity. I'm going to jump out of a plane. Great. But that buzz only lasts a very short time. Okay. Then some people who are adrenaline junkies have to find next levels of extremity to be able to get that buzz again. So you find that the threshold is always rising and you can't meet it. Okay. So when you decide that you want to meet the needs of your spiritual side, be it personal growth and contribution, you find then that you have a purpose. And when you find your purpose, you can then move forward with a strategy for how you're going to live your life. So this is a time now to take review of where you're at. Where am I? Be honest with yourself. Don't see things better than they are. Don't see things worse than they are. Be completely honest with yourself. This is where I'm at now. Have an honest review of your life. Have a think about where you're at. Are you depressed? Are you anxious? Are you fearful? Do you have OCD? Like you're feeling obsessive because of all the cleaning that you have to do. Because this could bring about OCD for people. Are you feeling fearful about death? Some people really fear mortality. So this situation that's occurring at the moment brings about a conscious level of mortality, and you realise that it kind of reminds you that everything dies in life. And this complete crisis that people are in brings about a sense of fear of death, fear of the unknown for themselves and other people. So this is a chance to sit down, take stock of where you're at, think about where you'd like to be in 3 months, and challenge yourself to a new goal. Okay? So I just want to talk a little bit about the Molder of Meaning. Okay? So the Molder of Meaning is, in psychology, we talk about, particularly in cognitive behavioural therapy kinds of that type of therapeutic mode. I don't always use that type of mode. I use a whole mixture of different things when I'm talking to people and working with people and coaching people. I do a lot of strategy work with people. So the one thing that is quite prominent and you can take away is to understand that we have patterns of cognition. So we have patterns of thoughts. They go around and they loop sometimes. You have this voice in your head, this thing about yourself that you either tell yourself that you're great at what you do, or not so good, or you berate yourself. There's different things that people tell themselves. There's a lot of things that go on in the head, and it's very hard to measure how many thoughts that people have in a day, but they're So there's many ideas that psychologists say that, you have 50,000 thoughts, and there's this whole big number of ideas and theories about it, but we don't really know. I don't know how many thoughts you have a day, and the question is, do you know how many thoughts you have a day? And are your thoughts positive or negative? Are you a overgeneralizer? Are you a catastrophizer? Do you catastrophize everything? Are you a drama queen? Is everything in life dramatic? Or are you the kind of person that sees the positive out of things, the silver lining, or the car, instead of the cup being half full or half empty? I have a friend that tells me her cup's always running over, and that's a brilliant attitude. So there's a lot of different ways and perspectives that people see life, okay? So how are you seeing the current situation? What perspective are you coming on from with this current situation? Because we all have hypnotic loops that go around in our head of our thinking. Okay, so the Molder of Meaning suggests that we have patterns of thinking, cognition, we have patterns of language, and we have patterns of physiology. Now, one of my patterns is that when I talk, I use my hands. Every single time, 100%. It's a pattern of physiology. Whenever I do any kind of talking with people, my hands are gesture. That's just me. That's what I do. Could I stop? I reckon it'd take some work. But it's a pattern that I have. So I can identify my own patterns of thinking, my own patterns of language. I know when I go in and I meet somebody, it's always the same pattern. Oh, hi, how are you? Oh, good, thanks, how are you? It's the same pattern. Now, the reason we have patterns is because as human beings, we've developed patterns to make life quicker, to make life easier, and to cut down on time. It's like opening a door. You might open the door inwards, outwards, slide it. They might be automatic. But we all have an understanding that there's different ways to open a door. And if we had to figure out and problem solve every single time how to open a door, it would take time and it would be frustrating. So our brain is designed to have patterns that either help us or hinder us. And sometimes your patterns can be positive or negative. They can help you move through life in a positive direction, or they can help you move through life in a negative direction. It's just a matter of understanding how you can work with them. Okay, so the Molder of Meaning suggests that if you're thinking negatively, you need to change your physiology to change how you feel, because the chemistry in the brain changes. So if you're feeling flat and low, the best thing you can do is get up, go for a walk, do something completely different, because it completely limits and busts that pattern of thinking. It's got to knock my glasses. That pattern of thinking. So when you have that chemical change in the brain, you will start to feel better. So the more that you get up and go and walk, the better that you feel, or do an exercise program. It's a pattern interrupt. Now, when I did my training in neuro-linguistic programming and hypnotherapy, the things that I learned were about pattern interrupts. So if you have a pattern going on in your head, it's important that you find a way to interrupt that pattern. Okay, I feel flat and low, I'm feeling stressed. Get up, do some exercise, do something different, cook a healthy meal, ring a friend, and interrupt that pattern. And find a way that you can work through that problem or that thinking pattern with a good coach. Because if you don't have the tools to be able to work through that thinking pattern and ask yourself the right questions, it might always be that you have to quickly interrupt that pattern. But you can actually train your mind to think differently. Okay, so I'd like to teach you some of that as well. Now, before I go, I just want to give you some tips. But what I want you to do is to challenge yourself. And by next time on the video, I'll go through a little bit more, in a little bit more depth, because I've gone on for nearly 40 minutes at the minute. So I want to leave you with this. 1, ask yourself the question, what can I do to challenge myself in this period of isolation? I want you to think of something that you can do for 13 weeks to bring about a positive result in your life. Now, these 4 things are very important to do whilst we're going through this. Eat well. Eat healthy, nutritious food. Drink your water and your healthy juices or your smoothies. Eat well. Drink well. The second thing, move regularly, okay? Get up, do an exercise regime. There's plenty on YouTube. I don't want to reinvent the wheel and get you to do push-ups and squats and go through all that. There's so many really good personal trainers out there. Get onto YouTube, get some free training, loads of apps out there. If you can't think of anything, walk around your house, do something different. Push-ups, sit-ups, squats, proper crunches though, don't hurt your neck. Lunges. There's heaps of exercises that you can do. Get yourself some cartons of milk, do some bicep curls. There's heaps you can do. Next thing, get good quality sleep. Sleep is so important for our mental health. We need to sleep. Some people need to sleep 6 hours, some people need 8, some people need 9. It's a personal thing. The hours that you sleep before midnight are always the best quality. When you go to sleep at 10 o'clock instead of 12 o'clock, you will wake up feeling much fresher than what you will when you go to bed at 12 o'clock. Okay? I'm a bit of a night owl. I do prefer to try and go to bed a bit earlier because I know that when I get up in the morning, I feel better and more refreshed. So the hours you get before midnight are much better quality than the hours after midnight. So try to get yourself to bed. Learn about your sleep patterns because we have only so many sleep cycles, and they run from anywhere between 1 hour 20 to 1.5 hours, and then you go back into the next cycle. So try to wake up when you naturally wake up with your normal sleep cycles. And this is probably a good time to get into that routine. The next thing is learn something new. Give something new a go. So 4 things, okay, that's 8. 4 things that you can do: eat well, move regularly, sleep well, learn something new. And with that, I challenge you to find a new goal and we'll get started on it. Send me a message if you need to. Have a great day or afternoon, and bye for now.